So when you think about your local pharmacy, that super clean, efficient place with all the standardized doses and uh, strict regulations, where do you think that whole system was actually invented?
Well, most people would probably guess somewhere in Western Europe, maybe, the Renaissance or the Enlightenment.
That's what I would have thought.
And that would mean missing one of the most, frankly, foundational chapters in all of medical history. Because the blueprint for that modern pharmacy, the idea of a professional, regulated pharmacist, it was all created over 1,000 years ago.
Not in Europe.
Not even close in 9th-century Baghdad.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
So for this deep dive, we're heading straight into the Islamic Golden Age. We're looking at sources that detail how Muslim scholars and rulers basically transformed medicine from uh, a messy collection of folk remedies into a real formal science.
Right. And you have to picture Baghdad at this time. It wasn't just a city, it was the intellectual center of the world, a vibrant, chaotic metropolis that was a magnet for scholars, merchants, healers, everyone.
Okay, so what's our mission here? What are we trying to figure out?
We want to discover not just what they invented, but why. Why did they feel the need to formalize this profession? And what specific systems did they put in place that, and this is the amazing part, we still use today?
So to really get that, I guess we have to start with the problem they were trying to solve. I mean, if Baghdad was this hub for brilliant minds, it must have also been a marketplace for, well, some pretty dubious claims.
Oh, absolutely. Medically speaking, it was a dangerous landscape. On one hand, you had geniuses gathering this incredible knowledge about herbs, chemistry, complex compounds.
The best of the best.
Exactly. But on the other hand, literally anyone could set up a stall and sell what was basically medical guesswork, or, even worse, dangerous mixtures.
You've got real medical science sitting right next to charlatans selling what we'd call snake oil. The quality control must have been, what, zero?
It was non-existent. It was a complete hit-or-miss affair. Even if a brilliant physician like al-Razi prescribed the perfect formula, the patient's health depended entirely on who mixed it.
Right.
A tiny error in preparation, a little too much of one ingredient, or using a cheap, tainted herb, that could be the difference between a cure and a catastrophe.
So this lack of standardization was, literally a life and death problem for people. What pushed the caliphate to actually do something about it? Was it just about public safety?
Well, it was practical, but it was also deeply philosophical. The sources really stressed that the pursuit of healing was seen as a sacred duty in Islamic tradition. There's this core belief that for every disease, there is a cure.
So it wasn't just fixing a civic problem.
No, it was seen as fulfilling a religious command through systematic scientific investigation.
And I imagine the top physicians themselves were demanding this. You're a genius doctor, you figured out a cure, but your whole system is undermined by sloppy preparation.
Precisely. The physician's work, all that study and diagnosis, it was only as good as the actual drug that was handed to the patient. And before this, the physician often had to prepare it themselves, or they'd rely on a general herbalist, an al-Attar.
And if the doctor is mixing the medicine, their focus is split. That lack of specialization you mentioned, that's where the inconsistency comes from.
It's the very heart of the problem. You could go to one herbalist and get a potent, perfectly prepared compound. Go to another one across the city, and you might get a weak, useless batch. The caliphate recognized that medicine just couldn't be left to chance.
And this is where they make the big move, the invention we're really talking about. They don't just try to regulate the old way of doing things.
No, they create a brand new specialized profession from scratch.
They created the saydalani.
That's it, the saydalas, a new class of highly trained professionals whose one and only job was preparing, compounding, and storing medicinal drugs.
This is the moment pharmacy officially splits from general medicine.
It is. It's specialization, but it's specialization enforced by the state.
Okay, so if you're going to create a new profession, you have to create a way to train people for it. Which leads, I guess, to the world's first formal pharmacy schools.
Yes, and these weren't just simple apprenticeships. These were actual institutions with a formal curriculum. Students learned so much more than just, memorizing which plant does what.
So what was on the curriculum that made it such a huge leap?
It was intensely scientific. They studied botany, of course, but also specialized chemistry. And not just theory, practical application. They learned techniques like grinding, refining.
Things like distillation.
Exactly. Distillation, sublimation, all these key processes to extract the active ingredients from the raw plants. They were making precise tinctures and powders.
So the goal was to quantify everything, to get away from a handful of this herb to exactly 3 grams of this refined extract.
That's the quantum leap for patient safety. Standardization. The training
Mhm.
was obsessed with weights and measures. The Saydalani had to master the use of standardized balances with incredible accuracy.
So before this, it's guesswork. After this, it's reliable data.
It's metrics. It ensures every patient gets the same dose every single time, no matter who prepares it. You're turning a folk art into an applied science.
But, training is only one part of the equation. How do they make sure these new professionals actually followed the rules once they open their own shops?
That's where the second innovation comes in, and it's an equally revolutionary system of accountability. It was built on 2 pillars: ethics and inspection.
Okay, let's start with ethics.
The Sedalani were taught a very strict code of conduct. Their job was preparation and nothing else. They were forbidden from diagnosing patients, which could dilute their focus, and they were explicitly banned from fraud, like swapping in cheaper ingredients.
But codes of conduct can be ignored. What was the enforcement? The real muscle.
That came from a very powerful official. This brings us to the mutasib.
Ah, the market inspector. But this person was way more than just a health inspector, right?
Oh, much more. The mutasib was appointed by the caliphate to ensure fairness and safety across all public life, commerce, morality, and, critically, medicine. Their job included auditing the pharmacists.
So what did a surprise inspection from the mutasib actually look like in a Baghdad apothecary? I mean, they couldn't run lab tests.
No, but their methods were brilliant and practical. First, they'd check the weights and balances, which were the cornerstone of standardization. The mutasib would carry a set of officially calibrated standard weights.
Wow.
Yeah, and they would test the pharmacist's scales right there on the spot. If your weights were off, you were in serious trouble.
That's direct quality control on the most important thing, the dosage. What else?
They inspected the ingredients and the cleanliness of the shop. The mutasib would check the storage rooms to make sure herbs weren't old, spoiled, or adulterated, often using their own sense of smell, sight, even taste. And our sources really emphasized the cleanliness of the jars, the mortars and pestles, the whole facility. It was a key part of the inspection to prevent contamination.
That kind of systemic oversight is it's incredible for the 9th century. Builds trust, the patient knows the doctor diagnoses, the Saydalani prepares with scientific precision, and the mutasib keeps everybody honest.
Exactly. And that trust becomes part of the physical space itself. This is when you see the old al-Attar, the simple herb and spice seller, evolve into this highly respected, formal apothecary shop.
Let's try to visualize that. So you're walking down a busy street in 10th century Baghdad. You go past all the noisy market stalls, and then you step into one of these apothecaries.
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
It would feel like a place of science. Quiet, measured, the air would be thick with these complex aromas, not just raw herbs, but the scent of refined oils and sophisticated extracts. You'd see shelves all meticulously organized, lined with beautiful glass jars filled with these vibrant, colorful powders and liquids.
Oh, much less like a messy stall and more like a proto-laboratory.
That's a perfect way to put it. The Saydalani would be working right there in the open, grinding, measuring, mixing, showing the transparency of the process. And that division of labor is the ultimate achievement. The pharmacist perfects drug preparation, which frees the physician to focus entirely on diagnosis and theory.
That model saved lives, and it's the exact model we still use.
It is. It's the backbone of modern medicine.
Now, an innovation this powerful, this structured, it couldn't have just stayed in Baghdad. How do these ideas spread and influence the rest of the world?
Knowledge like this, especially when it's written down, it rarely stays local. It traveled along the big trade routes, of course, but the most important thing was that it was all meticulously documented in these incredible texts.
We're talking about massive encyclopedias, right?
Mhm.
Cataloging thousands of different drugs and compounds.
Yes, exactly. You have works like the Great Pharmacopoeia by al-Biruni and the medical canons of Ibn Sina or Avicenna in the West, which had huge sections on pharmacology. These books were so comprehensive that they were translated into Latin and other languages.
And they became the new curriculum for everyone else.
They became the standard textbooks in European universities for centuries. When you look at the great apothecaries that pop up in Europe during the Renaissance, with their focus on precision and standards,
They're building on this foundation.
they are directly building on the principles of specialization, standardization, and accountability that were pioneered by the Saydalani and enforced by the Mutasib 1,000 years ago.
It's really a silent legacy. I mean, every time you see a pharmacist in a white coat meticulously measuring out a prescription, that whole regulated process has its roots right there in 9th century Baghdad.
It's that convergence of faith, which demanded healing, and rigorous science, which provided the method. That structure is what gives us trust. It turns a gamble into a reliable treatment.
So this whole deep dive really shows that to get from chaotic folk medicine to trustworthy healthcare, it took two radical steps. First, specialization creating the Saydalani.
And second, radical enforced accountability, the mutasib. You need the professional structure and you need the external oversight.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. Think about what modern industries, or, what fields today, maybe areas suffering from misinformation, from wild claims, from a lack of quality control, could benefit from a similar strategy. What part of our world is ready for a radical new specialization? And the appointment of a modern mutasib to enforce standards and build back essential trust, just like they did for medicine in 9th century Baghdad. Something to think about until our next deep dive.